My name's Chris. I run our virtual design department. And my responsibility is basically to support our project teams in pre-construction and construction by enabling them with the software and tools required to plan, bid, and build successfully. So I'm going to show you how we use OpenSpace at Lee Kennedy from an operational standpoint, and then that's going to lead into Sebastian following up with some specific on-project use cases. All right, so how do we use it? In the pre-construction area, it's mostly for pre-bid walkthroughs. So what does our team need to do? They need to distribute captures out to our subcontractors. We're using this to align the views from the site to the team that might not have been there for the walkthroughs. And this creates a virtual site walk. That's something that we can always go back to. The old method of doing photographs, where they are, who took them, the quality, it's been a little bit of a challenge, and OpenSpace has helped us simplify that on a pre-construction level. And then in construction, this is part of our weekly captures. This is the responsibility of the superintendent, APM, assistant super, field engineer, whoever's on the site that needs to see the data, needs to see what the site looks like. They'll be capturing that weekly. It's a tool that we use at our OAC meetings for installation and tracking. We use the BIM Compare tool, and we use this the Procore integration, which I'll get into in a little bit. So in pre-construction, so a little overview of pre-construction at Lee Kennedy on 2021. This isn't built volume, but this is estimated volume, and that's $2.6 billion worth of work. So staying competitive with our bids is important, and making sure that our subcontractors are able to see and walk through the project is very important. This number for pre-bid walkthroughs is skewed a little bit. The pre-construction group at Lee Kennedy is divided into our special projects team and our large projects team. Our special projects team is doing anything from a 2,000 square foot office fit out to a 360,000 12-story lab job in an existing building. But they're the ones that are churning through up to 70, 80 projects a year, just quick. So the way that we enable these two sides of our pre-construction department, we have 3 OpenSpace cameras that are dedicated to the group, and these teams are responsible for creating the projects when they come in from RFP. There's various team members that are going to be on each project, so it's not a specific person who's responsible for the captures, it's whoever's available. And then as that pre-construction team gets built out, everybody needs to be on the project with access to these things. And then the third part is distributing the captures to our trade partners and the people who might or might not have been there for these pre-bid walkthroughs. So the team requirements, what do we need to do in pre-construction? We need to create the project. Like I said, these things are coming in fast, and our pre-construction team, they're estimators, right? They're not VDC personnel, they're not project managers, but they need to have an interface that works for them. So before the project's even established in Procore, before it's established in our ERP, they need to be able to create this project in OpenSpace and get out to the field and do a capture, because that's the information that's going to enable the next part of the project. Upload drawings easily and quickly, creating levels. You just drag and drop the PDF. It's great. It works for these teams, and it's something they can go back to and edit afterwards. So I alluded to on the last page, access to all available projects. The pre-construction team grows throughout, and sometimes they'll need to add internal team members, other project managers, once we figure out who's going to be assigned to which projects. The other thing that they're going to need to do is creating shared folders, which I'm going to get into on the next slide. And that's going to help us distribute this information out to our subcontractors. So the shared folders is a way of taking the captures that we do on these site walkthroughs and getting that information into the hands of the people who are going to be bidding the job. It helps us stay competitive, but also if we have, say, 3 electrical subcontractors bidding this job, we don't want to have to add each individual user. The shared folders are a way to create a public link that we can distribute out during the bidding process. And once we get locked in to a certain trade partner, once we get onto the project, we can either delete that shared folder or lock it out. And then those people that aren't a part of this project moving forward no longer have access to it. But the good thing for us is that, it helps keep our subcontractors informed of what's out there. It's not just the one person from our fire protection team that went out there and saw it. They can share that with everybody who's going to be bidding the project internally as well. So the shared folders are a huge asset. And that's the capture. This is an example of a project that we did on Arlington Street in Boston. And that's just the 2 captures that we did in the pre-bid walkthrough. So that would be the only things that they have publicly available. And then once it moves further than that, we can take those captures away. So that's the true value in pre-construction. Usually it's only 1 site walk, maybe a second one if there's any missing information or we didn't have access to a certain area. But once that project's established, then we move into construction. So this is a little overview of what we're doing in construction right now. That 2022 number, we're doing about $400 million worth of work getting billed, and this is spread across 25 to 30 active projects at any given time right now. And so that can vary in size. It varies on personnel. It varies if it's new construction out of the ground or whether it's a small interior fit-up job. We're running about 15 OpenSpace cameras across these jobs right now. And each job is responsible for its own weekly captures. So for the most part, we'll have a camera sitting in the trailer at some of our larger projects. Our smaller projects where there's a PM that's on multiple 2 or 3 different jobs at a time, they'll have that camera in their backpack, and they're carrying that to the site and letting the site team run with it there. We also have cameras by personnel, our MEP, quality, safety, even scheduling. If there's something specific that they need to capture, for MEP, which I'll get into a little bit when we talk about the BIM compare tool, they'll go out the day before an MEP coordination meeting and just capture what's installed. It uploads overnight, and it's a good snapshot that they can bring up at the meeting instead of having to go out, walk out on site afterwards, and they can use the BIM compare tool for that. I'm going to touch briefly on permission levels. This is something that OpenSpace gets really well. We're the site admins as the GCs, and we're responsible for distributing information out to our subs and our owners. So we're controlling certain things, creating folders, who's on the project, what users they are, sheets, level names. We're creating the field notes. We're gathering the captures. We're in charge of the Procore integration. We're the ones that are access to push anything that we need up to Procore and doing any sort of model uploads. And when we push that out to our subcontractors and owner levels, they're just viewing the project. So they have access to all the captures, which is great. But those administrative tools that are allowed on the GC side help us stay in control of the information when it gets up there. Adam talked a little bit about field notes. I'm going to dive into kind of how we're using that. You can see on this page here, this is an example of a project that we did over in the Back Bay, in the Fenway area. Field notes are a way that we can status any specific challenges that we run out in the field. We can set priorities, and we can filter and tag based off of what the observation is. So this is typically done by the person who's going to be capturing. We'll walk through if there's anything that needs to be punched or anything that's installed incorrectly. They can take a photo of that and assign a priority level to it, put in the description what needs to happen next, and if necessary, they can push it up to Procore through their Procore integration tool. That Procore integration works with tagging to RFIs or observations. So if an RFI is already created and someone goes out on a site walk and can either status it as installed or still something that needs to get reviewed or looked at, they can tag to an existing RFI. Or if something comes up during the site walk, they can create an RFI directly from the OpenSpace walk and from the field note that they capture. You don't have to capture a field note when you're on site. It's something that you can go back to. If you took a photo on your phone and then you go back to the web afterwards, you can add that field note in. And it's just a way of really integrating that plan view site walk with the information that's up on Procore. And it's a tool that we're using all the time. The Procore integration works in 2 directions too, which is great. So in addition to being in the OpenSpace web app and being able to push stuff up to Procore, when you're in Procore, we talk about barriers, right? And having the app for OpenSpace available as a configuration within Procore, you don't need to leave that interface. So you can click the application tab in the top right, open up the OpenSpace walk, and that information stays within Procore. So it just prevents any sort of back and forth and really consolidates where you're finding that information. So at OAC meetings, this has a ton of value. It's something that can be brought up on the screen during the meeting. One of the things, challenges that we get from our field personnel all the time, it's like, okay, let's go out and see it. Let's go out and check it out. Well, you can do this if we plan, which we do, to walk the sites prior to the OAC meeting. That OpenSpace data is only a couple hours old, right? If we capture it the afternoon and that OAC meeting is the next morning, what we have up on the screen matches pretty well with what's out on site. So it eliminates that and expedites a lot of the communication around specific field issues. The BIM Compare tool, Adam talked about this. This is a huge asset for our MEP coordination team and our MEP supers. They can track installation up against the model. Like we said, that capture the day before, that NWD file that they're using throughout coordination, they can push that up as well. So that next morning, once everything gets processed, they're looking at the installed condition up against what's being coordinated. And when something gets installed, if something changes in the field, they can take a look at the model and make sure that that captures all the changes that were talked about or that were discussed. Another asset to the BIM Compare tool is being able to look in wall and take a look at any sort of pipes, conduit runs, gases, etc., that are going to be installed behind the wall, and just confirming installation there. This was a great tool on one of our projects because it allows our project managers, people that aren't that model savvy, to model compare, right? They're jumping into the floor plan in OpenSpace, and all they have to do is click a button that says BIM in the bottom right corner. They do have to click on the wall and right click and hide so that you can see what's in behind it, but that's it. That's the only barrier. The views match, so there's no model navigation. You don't have to understand. There's no licenses. It's very, very simple. OpenSpace does a great job of putting this power in the hands of our subcontract or of our supers and PMs and subcontractors. I'm going to touch briefly on tracking. We started this on one of our projects, the one over in the Fenway, as a pilot project for us, just to see the power of this tool, and it's amazing how fast it works. We were able to track the framing installation and understand the different phases, steps that went through, percent complete. The color-coded floor plan, providing a map of the walls and the different statuses. You could track what areas our drywall sub was in at certain times, and you can see the progress and set the date based off of that. And the last thing with the progress tracking is being able to retroactively review the progress at certain milestones. Where was it at this date? Where was it when this requisition came in? And it was a tool that our PMs found pretty successful.